Welcome back. Now, let's get the show on the road. It's exactly a week since elections were held in Kogi and Bayelsa states, and those elections left Nigerians wondering. Even the observers were asking questions as well if Nigeria can ever conduct violence-free elections. To look at these elections with us, it's my pleasure to welcome the spokesperson for the David Lion Campaign Organization, Mr. I beg your pardon, Chief Don Ivarada. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me here.
Looking pleased as punch.
Well, quite rested too.
And we also have Dr. Nick Idoko, an election monitor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So were you at both locations?
Actually, I'm an analyst. I'm not a monitor.
Oh, analyst.
I
Thank you.
wasn't a monitor this time.
Okay, okay. Right. So let me begin with you, since you are not as deeply involved as this guy right here to my left.
That one is a partisan man. I'm not.
My very point. So what are your thoughts about the conduct of the elections of last week?
Yeah, I think reflecting on the elections, Kogi and Bayelsa elections, my heart sank observing what went on during the elections, even before the elections. I'll give just a couple of instances. In Kogi State, for instance, the federal government gave a large years to the government, 10 billion naira, just a few days before the elections. For what? For what? And this is a state government that has deprived citizens, civil servants, of their due entitlements. The same state where people have committed suicide for not receiving their pensions, for not receiving their salaries. And then just a few days to elections, you send in 10 billion naira. For what purpose? And we are talking about democracy. What kind of country are we? Now, we move to Bayelsa. The governor thinks that primaries are not necessary. You go and handpick a candidate to run for governorship against all wisdom, all advice, all entreaties. Now, the political leader in the state, who happens to be a former vice president in the country, of course, turned his back. But I'm also amazed that turning his back, he gave victory to APC, an opposition party to his own party that produced him as the president of this country. It doesn't happen in a democracy. And I think Nigeria is hard put to learn lessons. We don't learn anything. I thought we had actually moved beyond the sort of situation we found ourselves during the Kogi and Bayelsa elections, that we're already improving on democratic processes gradually, incrementally. But this is a setback, so that people have lost hope that democracy will ever thrive in Nigeria. I have lost hope. It's unfortunate that we're in these motions. What a country, what a country. It's so amazing, the way we conduct our affairs.
It's interesting that you say this, because in 2011, we sat here in this very studio and spoke about it was beginning to look like our votes were counting.
Yes.
So people were going out more to vote. But we saw clips of thugs carting off ballot papers, ballot boxes, and all
stuffing
that.
ballot boxes.
So, I mean, so are we going one step forward and 10 steps backwards?
Most depressing. And after the elections, in Kogi State, you have won the governorship election, yet you proceed a woman's leader, you pursued her to her house and burnt her to death. Because of what? But you have won the election. So what's the problem? I don't know if we are wired to fail, because our country has failed. And nobody is there to salvage it. Nobody.
Oh,
When
dear.
leadership has failed completely, who is going to salvage the country?
Don, you were definitely on ground in Bayelsa. We hear that there were pockets of strange happenings in Bayelsa as well. Even though talking to you before you came on set, you denied all of that. How would you assess, try and be objective, the conduct of the elections in Bayelsa? I mean, he has given us a reason why it was like you had a landslide. The former president turning his back on the party candidate gave you open door.
Well, I think, firstly, I want to appreciate the good people of Bayelsa State for coming out in their numbers to demonstrate the need for us to embrace the concept called democracy, about deciding what our future should be. It is not also true that the elections in Bayelsa State were marred in any way by violence in whatever level. It is also true that observers were in Bayelsa State leading to the election. Yes, it's true, like in Nembe, there were situations that we all said it was appalling, must not be accepted by any sane-minded persons, not in any side that's moving forward. Having said that, on the election...
Did the elections hold in Nembe?
Of course, that's where I'm going.
Okay.
But of course, of a truth must say, because this is a global spectrum, we're challenging anybody who was part of the processes in Bayelsa State to come out openly to say the elections in Bayelsa State witnessed violence of whatever level. We didn't. The reason was simple. Leading to what I want to say, I had my brother here talking about the former leader of our country, President Goodluck Jonathan, turning his back and making it possible for the APC to win. That, of course, is not exactly true. Reason being that the emergence of APC in leadership today in Bayelsa State is a product of 8 years of gross leadership in the state. It was a revolution that was silent for too long, and they are waiting for opportunity to express their views. The moment came, and coincidentally, the person that emerged as a candidate of APC is a man that has over the years spent his hard-earned resources, not a politician, touching lives, building roads, building schools, giving water, provide Medicaid for people, and the opportunity came. And when they brought him, people said, yes, this would be the solution. And so, what has happened in Bayelsa State is about the people saying democracy counts. And so I marry my views with what my colleague here is talking about, the need for us to step up our dreams and desires to have a better society. There in Bayelsa State, unlike maybe other states, I don't want to mention, we had the few days of an election. INEC made a statement. They said this is the fairest they've conducted. The security agencies who went there said just one thing. We thought Bayelsa State would be on fire.
We will take a moment. We will take a moment and go on a quick break. But just to say that we reached out to other parties to join this conversation in Kogi and also in Bayelsa, but obviously they couldn't make it. But we'll be back shortly. Please join us again. Welcome. We're still talking about the aftermath of the Bayelsa-Kogi elections. Before we went on that break, Don Ibarada was talking about the situation on ground and how the Bayelsans chose to embrace democracy and made their choice. But Prof. Sidoko, the observers had a press conference after the elections, observers, monitors and all that, a coalition of civil society groups. And they believe that the final results were manipulated. At the end of the day, the question is democracy serving Nigeria as it ought to?
You can imagine that those were people on ground who observed the elections. And if they have such a stark verdict on the elections, then those of us who were observing from some distance should believe them. I think that the elections in Kogi and Bayelsa were massively rigged, massively. And I'm not mincing words here, massively. And the electorate got confused, more deeply confused than before. Some of them couldn't even come out. Those who came out just came out of sheer patriotism to cast their votes. So at the end of the day, they get the short end of the stick. In Kogi, we understand that the governor polled about over 400,000 votes, and the opposition got over 100,000 votes. In Bayelsa, the governor polled over 30,000 votes, as against the opponent that polled just over 100,000 votes. And people were wondering in Kogi how Kogi citizens or Kogi residents could, give Yaya Bello over 400,000 votes. That cannot gel. Because if you saw what was happening in Kogi State prior to the elections, the despondency in the states, the apprehension, the zeal to go and vote out a government. And then at the end of the day, this is the kind of result you get. Where does the hope lie? In Bayelsa State, my compatriot here has said that the governorship candidate of APC, Leon David, is that?
Yeah, David Leon.
Yes, that he had been a private person, who contributed so much, to the development of Bayelsa. But how do you juxtapose that kind of candidate against a former president? So the reasoning or the analysis is that the former president actually simply decided to give victory to APC because his advice, his participation in the party processes were all ignored. Therefore,
did you listen to talking about this matter of the former president, did you listen to the press conference of the governor?
No, I didn't.
Where he talked about the fact that there is no rift whatsoever between him and the former president.
That was what he should say. But you know that the former president had a meeting with the current president. Nobody knows exactly what the meeting meant.
It could have been any
but
other
it was
thing.
before elections.
It could have been any other
It could have been anything, but
the former president also had...
It's also something to suspect.
The former president also had meetings with traditional rulers from Bayelsa.
Yes, but that's his home state.
Exactly.
I'm saying crossing the bridge.
No. He had meetings
to have a handshake
with the president
with an
of
opponent.
The country.
Yes, he's the leader of APC.
Who took over from him.
Yes.
It could have been any national matter.
Yeah, but I'm saying in the context of elections, when you do that, you raise suspicion.
But let's look at the thing. Let's leave the election and look at after the election.
Okay.
What should we be talking about now that the elections are over?
We should be talking about democracy. How do we rebuild democracy? How do we institute democracy? How do we conduct elections that are free and fair and credible and violence-free? How do we as a country move from here to the next level? How do we join the Committee of Nations as a civilized nation? Because we behave like primitive Stone Age people. Because we are not learning anything. Do you know where the world is today in terms of technology? But where is Nigeria? Let me say something. I don't mean any insult. If you put a hotline here and I say, okay, let's dial the president of Nigeria. I say, Excellency, sir, can you tell us or give us your thoughts on AI? I'm not sure the president will be able to tell us anything. I'm not sure. And that's how far backward.
Which is why he has aides that can handle that.
Yeah, but...
So if we put a call through to the president, he might not be able to tell us that, but he could call
Why
one of
not?
his aides.
Why not?
He
The
could call
modern
one of his,
president
he
should
could
be
call
able to
one
tell
of
us.
his aides to tell us about AI. He has a team that works with him.
Yes, but he should be on top of the game. That's
But
the point I'm making.
Okay.
That if you're a modern nation, ambitious to develop, to join the Committee of Nations, your leader should lead from the front, not from the rear.
Don Nevada, elections are over. Are we talking democracy now? What would the people of Bayelsa and indeed be seeing going forward?
Yeah, for us as a people in Bayelsa State, democracy today is already there. There because our votes have counted, our decision has prevailed over the cynical views of a very negligible few. Notwithstanding, what we have today that depicts the real sense of democracy is about service delivery. And that's why the APC and indeed the governor-elect, David Leon, he has come to tell Bayelsans a very simple covenant that he has with them in the course of the electionary campaigns. What are those things? And that also tells the story of why we came out and marched to vote. Like my brother here in the studio talked about how the world has left us. It is also true in Bayelsa State. The governor-elect today has got an opportunity to do the very basic things of life because they are not there. For instance, water. He has come to tell the people of Bayelsa State, I'm setting timelines. In 2 years of my government, I'll be able to touch 200 communities and providing water, potable water for them. Because we cannot live without water. And we have the capacity and the requisite expertise to provide, and the resources are there. Number two, he has told the people of Bayelsa State that for us to start anything at all, we must get security, safety, a very serene environment, so that the world will understand that the environment is good enough for them to promote their resources and, of course, invest in our state. What that simply means is that we're going to realign the concept of security. How do we go about that? He has told the people of the state, we are all going to be stakeholders, communities, neighborhoods, the people, opinion leaders, critical stakeholders, and the security community will sit down and work together.
Are there
build
timelines
trust.
to all of this?
Of course, what we're saying, like, I just told you about water, and he did say, and he's emphasizing every other day, that Bayelsa money belongs to the people. Therefore, we're going to touch 200 communities in the first 2 years, providing water. Because for 8 years of the outgoing government, not even a drop of water was provided for the people. He has talked about security. That's why I'm talking about the need for collaboration of necessity between the people, security agencies, critical stakeholders, all of us together, own the process and work together to ensure, build trust, and of course, bring out the very best in us. We're talking about power. Bayelsa State is lucky to have the highest deposition of gas that is flaring every day, killing our people, giving us different diseases, destroying the ecosystem, agriculture, everything is gone. And this governor has come to tell the world, without power and energy production and distribution, we can't go to anywhere. How do we go about that? He said, of course, we have the requisite knowledge here. We can also tap into wherever the knowledge is. Like my brother here, the prof, said, about the need for us to talk about knowledge and technology. We will ensure that we convert this wasted gas into electrical energy so that we get turbines, modern turbines that can work and expand so that at the end of the day, we understand that our rural communities can also feel the presence of modern life. We're going to ensure, and also he has given a timeline to that, because he believes that 4 years in government is enough to touch at least 65 to 70% of the communities. That's sounding modest. The reason being that
that
Bayelsa
sounds
State...
very unlike a politician.
No, it's very modest. The reason being that Bayelsa is a small state, just 8 local governments, so rich, so endowed. All we need is good leadership. And that's why we're saying, look, he has come to say, Bayelsa money no belong to me. It no belong to David Lion. Bayelsa money belongs to the people of Bayelsa State to provide the necessities of life. And so energy, we are believing that 65 to 70% of the communities in Bayelsa State will have a new feel, a lease of life to say, yes, we've got energy. What does it take to do? Get modern turbines, discuss with the multinational companies that are flaring the gas every day, destroying our environment, by ensuring that we'll convert that to electrical energy. And of course, we'll run the lines. Very cheap and easy to build substations to ensure we get that done. And go further a bit.
You make it sound very
No,
easy.
it's easy. See, leaders must understand it's done in the Western world. And so when we keep saying we can't do it, that is a defeatist position. In Bayelsa State, we are saying a revolution has just taken place, and we want to reap the values and the gains of that revolution. And that's why we're talking about agriculture, for instance. Years past, Bayelsa used to be the rice basket of the Niger Delta, and of course, some part of the country. What happened? All of that is gone. Our land is a begging soil for agriculture, especially cassava production and rice. Is it not also true?
Even with the oil spills, because when you talk about land for farming, people
Yes.
say oil spills have destroyed all the land.
God has been fantastic and indeed wonderful. That in spite of all, although a lot of our crops have gone, but rice production, if you go to my community, it's called Otopoti, it will shock you. Young boys of 18, because of unemployment, what are they doing today? They've got their own rice farms, and they grow in an amazing way. What that tells is very simple. If we get things right as a state, which the governor has said, I want to open the primary farm, I want to open the Otopoti farm. These are farms that will run into hundreds of hectares. How do we go about it? Don't we have the money? Yes, we have. The Minister of Agriculture has some of the very best engineers. So why are we keeping them there? And above all, the international community is filled with individuals and companies, groups and organizations that are saying we've got the dollars, the trillions and the billions. We want an environment that is necessary for investment. And that's why we're talking about security, guaranteeing security. Having a government that is frugal, transparent, and showing discipline in law and order. If we have these things, then we'll say, yes, we can produce rice. Is it not also true that we have the longest and the richest coastline in sub-Saharan Africa, in Bayelsa, a small state like that? What that portends, therefore, also is that tourism can thrive in Bayelsa State. We have some of the very best beaches we can talk about. So why are we not investing in tourism? And so we're looking at agriculture, we're looking at tourism, so that we can diversify, the economy of the state from this male dependence on statutory allocation from the federation account. It's amazing, but we are blessed to have an opportunity that if we embrace it the way we think, why not? Why not? But remember, we are putting timelines in almost everything.
Yeah.
I've not even talked about
You told us 2 years for the water.
For water.
For 200
yes.
For 200 communities.
Yes.
You didn't tell us the timeline for power.
I said 4 years.
4 years.
70 to 75, 65 to 70% of our communities
70%.
are going to embrace the joy of power generation.
So
that
that's
it can
4 years
boost.
for power, 2 years for water.
Yes.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Prof, you were smiling when he was talking about all of this. I was actually going to ask you what you think about the National Assembly reworking the electoral amendment bill. That Festus Akingbe actually is highlighting that. It says it's heartwarming that they are reworking the electoral amendment bill. Do you think that will make any difference?
I am not too sure about this National Assembly. I'm not too sure. Because the signs are there that it is not a National Assembly that is ready to play the politics of development. It is a National Assembly that gives the impression that they will play the politics of party, the politics of patronage, and the politics of we are here and they are there. So I'm not looking at a National Assembly that will indeed work for development. No. They are reworking what? There was a bill before the government, the president, the last National Assembly, where the electoral laws have been amended. If those laws, if those amendments had been implemented, we might not have had this kind of, shambolic election.
But you heard the reasons given for the assent that was not given. That the time was too close.
No.
And if that was signed, it was going to cause some kind of confusion.
That was very frivolous reason. The time was not too close. The time was not too close.
Okay, but that's yesterday. Today they are reworking it, or they are looking at it again.
Okay.
To maybe before the next election it will be ready. Would that make a difference in our electoral process?
I'm still worried. Why I'm worried is this. Is it not the same National Assembly that is reworking the electoral bill that is also creating laws on hate speech, what they call hate speech, that if you offend against the law of hate speech, you'll be tied to the stake and killed. Is it not the same National Assembly or the same Senate? So that's dual civic person, if you talk about the Senate, for instance. And that's also the problem we have in the country. Because our public is also a dual civic public. I try to illustrate this. When you're a minister, for instance, assuming you're a minister, you come from a community. When you steal money from the central purse and you come and develop or build roads or do whatever you need to do for the community, you are hailed. That community hails you, that you're a hero. Okay, let's just say that you retire or you finish your tenure as minister and you return home and you're made the head of the development association in your community where they levy themselves to create value for themselves, and then you happen to embezzle the money. What do you think the community will do to you, that public will do to you? They will call for your head. That same public that hailed you when you were a minister, when you were stealing money and bringing home, the same public will say, to hell with you, you should be killed for stealing from them. Until we exorcise our public of this ailment, Nigeria is not going to make any progress. We're not going to make any progress because our public is castrated in such a way that we are not only powerless, we don't only misunderstand the politics of development, we wallow in ignorance, in poverty, sometimes self-inflicted.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Don, the same way that punishment has been prescribed for hate speech, for instance, the same way there are punishments prescribed for election malpractices. I am sure some people saw those persons who did that heinous thing that they did in Kogi, that woman leader who was burnt alive, but nobody has been arrested. And so long as nobody is arrested and punished for these things, for so long will they continue to reoccur.
Yeah, I think I will largely align with what the Prof has said. I'm a legal scholar, and I think when I hear matters of an offense being committed and then institutions or agencies of government are doing possibly very little or nothing to ensure that they apprehend offenders and then go the next level of the law to ensure that they are prosecuted. It's quite disheartening to hear that in our modern day today in Nigeria, in the course of election or whatever, human lives to a large extent do not matter again. And it doesn't tell the story of where we're going. I expect by now and by this moment we're talking that we're hearing either through the media or perhaps a statement from the police authorities that the perpetrators of that dastardly act have been arrested and, of course, prosecuted. I wouldn't want to go to an extreme level of judgment, bearing in mind that I also do have a good knowledge of how the security system here in Nigeria operates, having served in the police for some years too. I know that they may have also taken in some people, but it is also true that the present Inspector General of Police is disengaging from the old model of the police of they've not done anything at all. They've gone to the media to say, we have 2,000 people in our custody. They are doing a thorough investigation. I spoke with a very senior police colleague of mine, and he told me that the police is doing a great job in that, and it will be very revealing to Nigerians.
So would you say is that investigation that has led to that statement that some fake policemen were the ones that disrupted the elections in Kogi? You answer that one, we'll come back from this break.
Okay.
Please join us again. Thank you for staying with us. Before Don answers that question, Isioma Chibolu says, I don't know how government can sleep at night knowing that under their watch, Nigeria is rapidly descending into a failed state. Nothing seems to be working, yet they refuse to give way to competent hands to fix things. They hang on to power by any means necessary, even killing. That's from Isioma Chibolu. Festus says, we cannot be blaming INEC all the time. Our desperate politicians make it impossible to have peaceful and fair elections. Even with electronic voting, there's no guarantee that they will not tamper with the system.
The same Festus said, sadly, both PDP and APC are masters of election malpractices. Only APC had better strategies in Bayelsa and Kogi this time.
Wow. That is quite...
You are going to answer the question about a reaction to a statement allegedly credited to the IGP that fake policemen disrupted the elections in Kogi.
Well, it's pretty awful to swallow that, reason being that when you make a statement like that as an Inspector General of Police, you are largely indicting your institution. And I don't expect him to say that further. Maybe he may be regretting that in close heads too, because he has stabbed himself wrongly. Fake police officers, who were the police authorities, or who was in charge of the police monitoring of the elections, who were the policemen, the genuine policemen. As at the time, the young lady was being burnt alive. Who were those looking around? Maybe the fake police officers were there, and so they are unable to do the other things.
And if you knew that they were fake, how many of them were arrested?
I am careful not to swallow it hook, line, and sinker that actually the IGP said that, because it's quite bad to hear. But having said that, we owe a duty out of good conscience as Nigerians to be our brother's keeper, to start understanding the essence of life. If we don't value the humanity in us, how can we even talk about advancing the prospect of our lives as a people? And so when we hear things like that, we start wondering, where are we going? Are we drifting backwards even faster than some people are thinking? The world is moving. The prof here was talking about artificial intelligence. And here in Africa, we are talking about how to provide water like in my state. We are talking about providing water, the basics of life. And so I keep telling people, for instance, maybe I digress a bit by telling folks that the governor-elect of my state is so lucky that he isn't having serious challenges about leadership, because he's faced with a state that hasn't seen water for 8 solid years, from the state capital to the nooks and crannies, everywhere. A state that is bedeviled with crime and criminality everywhere. And the people, everyone is saying, look, it's enough. We want leadership so that our neighborhoods can be safer. What that portends, therefore, is that people are saying, we want to be partners. All we want is a leadership that will assure us that, yes, these partnerships and collaboration can work. We are talking about education, for instance, in my state. And it will shock you to note, because this is no longer campaigns. We are talking about the prospect, the blueprint, what we want to do for our people. As we speak now, children in Bayelsa State still sit on bare floor to learn. That is for those that the walls are still standing. And the governor has come, the governor-elect is telling the people, like he told us during the campaigns, what I will do is to ensure that in 2 years, we increase first school enrollment. You don't increase the school enrollment from 0 points to 10 when there are no walls, when the classrooms have no walls and no roofs. We will ensure that we strengthen the educational infrastructure of the state, from primary, secondary, and then, of course, the university. He did say during the campaigns that the Nigeria Delta University cannot be the costliest public university in Nigeria. The school fees or tuition is so high, over 100, almost hitting 200,000. And he said he's going back to the old roots, where the palm quarters children, like my father used to be a palm quarter, so that the children of palm quarters, of teachers, retirees, farmers, can also access education. He has told the people of Bayelsa State, I want to strengthen education in the form of ensuring that I bring in enough money for research development, so that the professors, the doctors in his school will understand that it's not going to hold the chalk, creating a new hope, a new future to advance in technology. He has told the people of the state, I want to ensure that virtually every secondary school, but he said, look, let us act with moderation. Can we get 300 schools in 2 years to to ensure that they have laboratories, effective laboratories, to strengthen science and technology, to have libraries, so that our kids and wards can study and compete with folks out there about notes. We cannot do all of these things when those who are going to impart the knowledge are also grounded, stagnated in their knowledge improvement. And so it's going to ensure that fresh institutions are brought in. If we don't have the requisite qualification of persons who will come and upgrade the teachers, let's bring it from University of Ibadan. We have it in Lagos here. Above all, the world is a global community. People can come from any part of the world and step up. So that impartation of knowledge can be
just to remind you,
yes.
I'd like to remind you this, and thank God that viewers are watching. Water, 2 years. Education, 2 years. And within that 2 years, 300 schools to get laboratories.
So easy.
Right?
So easy.
No, you're giving us timelines
yes.
now. Power.
Yes.
4 years. I wish the Kogi guys made it so that we can also get their own timelines as well.
Yes, yes.
But anyway, they're not here.
And I wanted to add about health service delivery.
All this is being written down.
Yes, we have a blueprint
so that after 2 years, we may just invite you back to come and talk to all these things that you spoke about and give us a progress report.
We will not wait for invitations. What we will do is to ensure that you come to Bayelsa State, see the things, and tell the world that there was a state that said these things and it's done. When you go to Ebonyi State is not begging for media attention. The media is rushing to Ebonyi State to say, this thing is working. And that's why we believe David Lion has the capacity to turn the situation around. We can't have abundance of resources, so much wealth. And the people so few. And then we're not doing things right.
We heard all this before.
No, that is a cynical position. We are saying, look, we are very optimistic. This candidate, this elected governor today is someone who has used the resources to provide so much for so many people. And now he's saying, no, you've given me the wealth of the state. Why won't I do more? And the people are saying, we know you will do more than we expected. That's why we're saying it's not politics.
And they may also ask this question, are you not there to go and recoup what you have already spent giving us water
look at Bayelsa
and all that?
We are talking about environment. Now, as we're talking, this is November 23rd, today, 23rd.
Yep.
Most communities in Bayelsa State are submerged by floods. And the state capital itself, about 30 to 40% of the houses are occupied by water. And so people are largely displaced. What does that mean? It's simple. Number one, in the state capital, we don't have drainages at all. This governor said, 2 years in office, 2 years, Yenegua will experience fresh drainages. Fresh, because we don't have any at all.
2 years.
2 years, drainages.
Drainages.
It's going to do that. And now, two, you know why it's going to do? Yenegua is a small place, just like an island. And we have rivers and creeks all over. Just bring a little technology, and then you push the water through. And he has said one thing that has touched the lives of the minds and souls of most of our people. What is it? Let me tell us. Number one, he said, what is most disturbing in our state is environmental degradation. Number one is flood and erosion. About 80% of communities in Bayelsa State are faced with the problem of flood and erosion. Our land is sweeping away and dancing into the ocean every day. He has assured the people of the state that 4 years in government, it will touch 100 communities in the state for flood and erosion control. He's going to do that through dredging, reclamation, piling, and that these things are doable. In the course of the campaigns, he went to communities and most of the areas people were crying, and he cried along with them. He said, no, I didn't come from Abuja or from London. I am one of the homebreed here. I know your problems. It's a problem of my community. It's a problem of your community. We will ensure that we use the resources of the states to handle these challenges of flood and erosion. Okay. And now when you look at all of this, tell the story of why the people said there must be a revolution. So it's not like the prof said here repeatedly that because the former president turned his back. No, the former president was a product of democracy. The people of this country freely chose him. And so when the people said, we want this, he did just the needful by saying, let the wish of the people prevail. And it has prevailed for good. Okay. And I can't wait to see these 2 years and these 4 years for these fantastic timelines that we've given. Okay. And our people.
Indeed, fantastic timelines.
Yes.
Profitoko, so 2 years water, 2 years education, 4 years power, 2 years laboratories in 300 schools, 2 years drainages, 4 years flood and erosion control. Now, for one who at the time monitored elections, and then you sat back to now analyze politicians and the politics they play, what do you think?
Like he has said, or we have said here, it's quite fantastic. like we say in local parlance, fantabulous. Because these are actually high stakes.
But are they doable?
They are doable, but whether they will be done is another matter.
Yeah.
First of all, the politicians will sit down and count their costs, how much they spent during the elections. They will think about how to recoup. So they are going to appoint contractors that will do their bidding. And you know that some of these contractors, when you give them contracts and you take back from them, some feel that they don't have enough to implement or to prosecute the projects. They do anything they like, wishy-washy, projects.
So that they can also make their profit.
They can also make their profit. So, by and large, I don't think these things will work. I don't think. Because we have had governments for more than 50 years. And these opportunities had always been there. When was Bayelsa State created? 20 years ago. Was it not? By Abacha's government.
1996, so 23 years now.
Yeah, 23 years now.
Yes.
Okay. And PDP has been in power there for 20 years.
Yeah, also.
Only now, all through. And these things we are talking about don't exist. They don't exist.
They don't. And you know that it's easy to provide
And now
water.
you are saying that in 2 years,
Yes.
in 4 years,
Yes.
all these things will materialize.
Not all these things. These are doable things. That is why we're failing in
I know that they are
So
doing it, but
there-
we don't have the capacity.
We do
the
have the
leadership that has
capacity.
the kind of capacity that will do it.
Bayelsans believe this leader can do it, and that's
Okay.
why they came out to demonstrate an
Okay,
unusual
problem.
character.
And like my sister has said, you are going to be invited to speak to all these
And they will go to Bayelsa State to
And
see
to
and
see them,
verify.
okay.
Okay. Prof, someone said here, Yahaya Wada says the perpetrators of the Dastardly Act in Kogi State have been arrested by the police.
Okay.
So that's some good news.
Well, that's some good news.
Okay, so hopefully the fake policemen will be arrested as well.
Maybe.
But
Not
Coach,
just arrested,
prosecuted as well.
prosecuted
As well.
and punished
And
adequately so
adequate.
that it will act as deterrent
To others.
Indeed.
Who might want to do
Indeed.
the same.
Coach Steve says we should advise you not to. You're being too firm about these things. You say you don't have the authority to commit the government. Soon they will come and say that it wasn't the government that said it.
This is what is buried in the blueprint. And Bayelsans know these things are doable. We have the resources. And the leadership that is coming has a character to do it. Are these human problems? Yes. Is it difficult to ensure we have flood and erosion control? What is there in procuring turbines? And that we have gas that is very and destroying our
there's nothing there but the will. Is there the will?
The Bayelsans are saying this man
The other
can
side
do
of it is he a lone ranger?
It doesn't need to be. He has
Well,
to tap
I
into
asked
the
the question.
apparatus.
I asked the question advisedly. Is he a lone ranger? He doesn't have the party paraphernalia around him, or the political paraphernalia around him that might want to distract him or might want him to focus on other things.
The pains in Bayelsa State have been monumental, and they've lasted for too long. And that's why I started by saying there was a silent revolution in the minds of the people, and they were waiting to explode. Good enough, they exploded through the PVC. And that's why we're saying, with this democracy that we've embraced, for a man so humbled, for a character that is largely you can find anything faulty in him, Bayelsa said, let's give him a chance, and we'll stand to support him. And stakeholders who perhaps over the period will say, it's not my business, they are saying, look, we've had our own fair share. Let us make our state work again. That's what this is, very positive thinking.
Okay.
And I believe we can do it. Even as I said,
like
before
your
I came to the studio, I remember I spoke with my principal, the governor-elect. And you know what he told me? Please, adhere to what I have told the people of the state that I will do. Let us maintain the few things we said. And if we do more, they will give us a pat on the back. And that's what we're starting
Before you ask Prof the question, let me read this. Shade A says, Mr. Evada has said so many things. We go see. 2 years timeline for a change of Bayelsa situation for better. We'll note these timelines and revisit the issues. The issues raised are double, but are doable. But does the government have the will?
It has.
Okay. All right. I'll let your question.
Yeah, Prof. Somebody says, obviously, the professor is protecting the interest of his party, the PDP.
Which party?
Are you a member of that party?
No. I've never
The
been a
professor
member.
is apolitical. Please,
yeah.
Mr.
Yes,
Emeka
I've never
Osai.
been a member. I don't have a party card. And I don't hope to have, because I can't play the politics they play.
Isioma Chibolu, it's open season to kill, maim, burn a woman alive to hold on to power. How do we expect things to change when the header of the nation did the same thing, rigged and stole the election, and cowed the judiciary, did nothing? Nigeria is in dire straits. No change under this government. Isioma Chibolu.
Okay, Prof. Issa Mutari says, I think elections in this country was always in this manner, but just that the elections in Kogi and Bayelsa turned against the will of the people, or those who wanted it to be the other way. So what do you think? What lessons can we draw from these elections?
Many lessons, but I will give 3. One is that the elections were massively rigged. It's a lesson. Massively rigged. And that lesson is that we are not learning any lesson. We behave like pigs. When you pull a pig out of the mud and clean it up, the pig returns there. And that's the way Nigeria has been constructed.
So can we deconstruct?
We can't deconstruct.
Would electronic voting make any difference?
Perhaps, perhaps. What I'm thinking, actually, is that we should not put people through these motions and pains and fears and intimidation. Let them sit at home and vote. We can try that. It is workable. If INEC, in quotes, if INEC will play ball, because at the end of the day, they will tell you they don't have a server. Whereas they've collected the data. So where do you store the data? If not in a server? Even the website that INEC operates, the website, runs on a server. So how can you come and claim in a modern world that
there might be a server not for election collation?
Who says so? Where do you store the data? How do you function without a server if you're an election management body in the world today? How can you deceive the world? You tell lies that look a bit, I don't know.
Don, in closing.
Yeah, I think I am overwhelmed by the victory of David Lion in the state, but we are also using this moment to
just a clarity. Some people are confused. Is it Leon or Lion?
It doesn't matter. We have to Nigerianize the pronunciation to say Lion. It's okay, but it's Leon, whichever way. We are not French people.
No,
and
okay,
so for my
Leon.
people, I'm
Leon.
talking like a Bayesan. We like calling him Lion, and it's
it's
indeed
Leon.
a lion. A lion that roars for goodness and
Okay,
mercy.
that's his name, Lion,
Yes,
for
Lion.
you Bayelsa
Now,
people.
so what I'm saying is, I think it's a great opportunity for our people to test run a new system because the governor-elect hasn't been a core politician, even though he may have some sympathy at one time or the other for a party. But he has come to align with the pulse of the people, to have a covenant to the people of saying, let's do it in 4 years and see if we'll get to those next positions. And we're believing it's possible. So we're using the opportunity to ask all of us, the elections are over, there is no time, and it's not necessary for us to start casting our passions and maligning people. Campaigns are over. Let us think about coming together. Let's bring the very best brains we have. Ijos are very intelligent. We are very brilliant people. Let us recoup from wherever we can. And of course, if not possible, tap in from the avalanche of opportunities across the globe. Let's make Bayelsa State work. David Lion can do it, but he can't do it alone. All of us as a people. Let's ignore whatever thing that happened. But conclusively, the elections for once in Bayelsa State was so peaceful, largely generally accepted as a product of the people. And so congratulations, Bayelsans.
Okay, now.
Before we take Prof's closing
And now we have to go.
Emeka Noha says, why didn't this Lion spokesman contest for the office of governor? He's exposed and smart.
He's what?
Exposed and smart.
Oh, yeah.
So please go and contest.
Prof, a closing statement.
Okay, I would say that Nigeria is descending fast into the valley of irrelevance in the world, that we need to return to the basics and rebuild our country and put our country on the wheels of democracy. That We have had so much wasted opportunities. Why are we like this? Why?
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Nick Idoko, who is a political analyst, as well as Mr. Don Evarada, spokesman, David Leon Campaign Organization. Thank you very much for coming and looking at the aftermath of the elections with us this morning. Sunrise will return in a short moment with another interesting conversation. Please join us.